Quiet on Set.
And action.
Welcome back to the Quiet on Set podcast. I'm Ewan Graf and I'm joined by Kevin Taelemans, and today we're going to talk about two films that premiered at the Cannes Film Festival last year. Charlie Pollinger's The Plague debuted in Un Certain Regard and is now available digitally. Same goes for The Secret Agent, which played in competition and received 2 awards for Best Director and Best Actor.
Brazilians, rejoice! Get in! We got even more in store for you and everyone who's a fan of Wagner Moura. We'll also be talking about Elite Squad, or also known as Tropa de Elite, which actually won the main prize at the Berlinale, the Golden Bear, in 2008. We'll also talk about the sequel, which holds ticket sales record in Brazil to this day. Damn,
then I got to see another 8 films from the Sundance Film Festival. One of my favorites of the year so far was playing there, but also another one that I would consider one of the worst films I've ever seen. So more on that, as well as Serpico Network later on.
If you want to skip around to any specific topic in the video, you can find the time codes below. Also, leave a comment, subscribe, like, and join our Discord if you haven't already.
If you ask enough, we might come to Brazil. Just letting you know. Anyways,
well, what is the news this week, Ewan?
Honestly, perusing the news website, discussing film, and all of those places, there was just so much like new productions, announced ahead of the European film market that's set to begin during, Berlinale. And with that, there's just so much like projects that are, so many projects that are getting announced, so many trailers for series especially. But we're not going to give you an overview for all of those. I feel like that would just be listing a bunch of stuff. But there's some interesting stuff that we're looking forward to. But not really anything in the news that is like worth discussing, I think, for the show. Although there is a lot of news to go around. If you're looking for it, you'll find a lot of stuff that
maybe
interesting.
Maybe some news from in-house.
Oh, you mean a box office thing?
No, well,
no,
yeah.
What do you want to?
That could. Well, I just want to say I'm close to finishing the montage, so that.
Well, you said that last week. That's like you can't.
Well, yeah, but now. But now I'm actually so close to it.
Okay.
Act 1 is finished. Act 2, which is the horror montage, is basically already out there. But I've added some new things to it. And then now I'm working on Act 3. So hopefully when that is done, like I still got like a shitload of films to put in. The count is at like 240. I'm working my way upwards to 300. It's gonna be 300. Oh god. Anyway. Yeah, box office. What did you say about that, huh?
We did a little game with, a couple of people who work in and around Quiet on Set, and we basically like used this website who is like a fantasy box office thing. I think I can put our selections on screen here so you see it. And you basically make a bet as to what movies are going to do the best in the year. And the way this worked, because there's 5 of us in there, we all got like free picks that we have that we got to make that was like releasing until the end of April. We started a bit late, so there wasn't that many. Like I think one of us would have taken Iron Lung. Maybe that's the only news story that would be worth talking about. The marketplace success story. But that we were already too late, so we couldn't choose that. But you pick free picks that come out in spring, and then there's another draft that we do in summer and in fall. You basically pick movies, and as soon as like their budget comes in, you start making money on the film as it makes 2.5 times its budget. You also get to make like one pick that's a bomb that you feel like is going to lose money, and that gets just put onto all of the other players. And you get to make one hit pick that's like releasing at any time throughout the year. And to me, it was really, obviously we're in spring, but it was so funny that like none of us selected, I believe, like none of us just selected Disclosure Day, Avengers, Dune, like all of these films we haven't selected. But yeah, Kevin, I think you went with like Spider-Man, right? The new Spider-Man movie.
My hit pick was Spider-Man, and my bomb pick was He-Man, the universe.
Yeah.
I do not think that's gonna make its money back.
And it has such a huge budget that that would be very surprising. It's just like, yeah, I see that flopping quite by quite a big margin. You also picked Normal, Ready or Not 2, and Undertones. So you like on the action horror
small
side.
budget, big return on investment. Hey, we make money around here.
Exactly.
I will say, picking those movies does not justify my motto of the company being James Cameron is fearing us taking over the box office crown. And then I like Spider-Man, sure. That justifies it, but all the other picks does not.
No. And also, Lachlan joined us for this, which shout out to Lachlan. He'll be on next week's episode as we talk about Wuthering Heights. It's not the movie that he selected. Actually, Josh, who does some of our editing sometimes, is selected that as like actually his hit pick. He's like that confident in it that he didn't want to select anything else throughout the year. Lachlan, funnily enough, was like his motto was like, oh, his company is called No New IPs, so he only went with sequels. So he went with the Super Mario Galaxy movie, Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which I guess is a remake, Scream 7, and The Strangers Chapter 3. And he also, funnily enough, accidentally picked as his bomb pick I Can Only Imagine 2, which, you know, we haven't seen the first one, but it's like one of those Christian movies. So it's bound to make like a small budget, bound to make money. So it's very funny because he didn't know that. And like, we didn't have that many, you know, things to select, I guess. But I went with the Minions 3 because I'm like, none of, like, they're gonna make like almost $1 billion for sure.
I mean, two elimination movies have been picked as a hit pick, so
yeah, exactly. I mean, and Lachlan went like as first as well, right? As the first thing that they
that was gonna be my
hit pick.
Damn it.
It's a good one. And then with Connor, because he was late, because we did this obviously with different time zones, you know, in the States, and then in, you know, Western Australia. It's a bit all over the place. We just ended up giving him a bunch of animated movies. Or like Moana, which is like, you know, live action version of an animated movie. He got Goat, he got Hoppers, and then he also went with Solo Mio, which I believe is like opening today, actually, as we record. We'll check back in with this later on. I also, by the way, I went with Michael. I still feel like that's going to make a lot of money. Remind us of him and Project Hail Mary. The thing is, on this site, I think one of the notes I have for this is like, it's not as easy to see what our bomb picks were. You just sort of have to figure it out from you know, because you see everyone else has like your bomb pick in them. But I went with Supergirl. And wait, remind me what you went with.
I went with He-Man.
He-Man, that's the one that I would have gone with as well. And I believe Josh went with The Bride, which is probably one of the best picks too for this. I think Connor, we gave Animal Farm, and Lachlan went with I Can Only Imagine 2. And it's fun. It was a fun time selecting it. I hope it's going to be fun keeping up with that later into the year. But yeah, that's a bit of an in-house update. We didn't set any stakes, you know, as to like what the loser have to do, but it's just
maybe the loser has to watch I Can Only Imagine 2.
Yeah, so something like that, or Cloud of Fish, or what the fuck it's now, the Pout
Fish.
Yeah, I didn't know that existed.
I was digging on that movie, my God. I was dunking on it so hard.
But yeah, that's a bit of in-house news. But do you want to talk about the plague?
Yeah, I'm always ready for another pandemic. Yeah.
Lovely. Let's jump right back into being angsty teenagers bullying each other. Isn't that like a lovely time period to return to? Let's talk about the plague. A socially awkward tween endures the ruthless hierarchy at a water polo camp, his anxiety spiraling into psychological turmoil over the summer. That's The Plague, which premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in the Instant de Regard section. Usually, you know, a place where a lot of like hidden gems do premiere, and with this having someone like Joel Edgerton in the cast, I think it was bound to find a release sooner than later. It had a brief theatrical limited run in the States towards the end of the year, and has now become available digitally where you can go see it. Now we'll I think talk about the movie a bit more broadly in the beginning, but we'll definitely be talking a bit more spoiler heavy, as this movie, you know, is sort of setting in a way for like an hour or so, where you're like very much just figuring out the dynamics, which are like very apparent from the get-go, but like you settle into like the uncomfortableness of like trying to fit in. and then you're just wondering how far is it going to push it to like go into like more psychological horror, or actual like maybe even a little bit of body horror. Is like, are they actually going there or not? And I was just like on the edge of my seat for this movie for quite a bit. I think it's very tense. I think it's a movie that is pushed along with its score atmospherically in a great way. It's very much on the forefront, but because it does it so well, I think I didn't really mind. Like, did this to you, the score, like, it opens up with them like all crashing into the water, like jumping in, and it sounds like a battle scene, you know, the way that they like they hit the water and it goes on and they go under. Yeah, what did you think about like how the movie started and like how it used maybe the score? I feel like that's the most interesting part about it, because it's so at the forefront more than like maybe in other films.
You know, in Belgium, we've made quite a lot of these playground, kids bullying each other dramas, to the point that I'm like kind of sick of it. Like, we're still mostly producing them, like still, but we've lessened on the production of those a bit, but we're still making them. And so whenever I see a movie like this, it's a bit like, okay, in what type of familiar territory are we going to be in? And I was quite surprised that this movie goes into places that it isn't. And you said somewhere in the show notes that this movie oftentimes feels a tad bit too adult, especially towards its ending. And this is the reason why I love this movie. Because this is a movie, I wrote it, I think the reason this movie is so effective is because it goes the adult route. There are gonna be no school trips, you know, to the plague.
Yeah.
You know how these movies are oftentimes made for, like with governmental backup, and it's like, okay, then we'll take the school trips, we'll take this movie around the schools, have a dialogue there. You're not gonna take this one to the schools. You're not gonna have okay, kids, let's show this movie where they swear a shit ton. They say the wildest things possible, and that's just not gonna happen with the plague. And that's why I like this movie so much. Wait, what?
I said Bukaki.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah,
such a
it's
wild.
Like, I think in the beginning half an hour, I was cringing away at like how these kids are just, because you're the new guy, right? You're placed in with the lead kid, who's called Ben, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And he sort of like, he feels like I've seen him in reality, like that type of archetype of person is like one that probably a lot of people, you know, are familiar with or maybe identify with themselves. The sort of nice kid who's but also kind of awkward, who's not confident, and then everyone else kind of over projecting sort of whatever the fuck they feel like is going to help their social standing. And I also found it interesting that the movie it like stays, it's a summer camp where it feels like they're so unsupervised. They go to the pool, they shower, they sleep. No, they eat as well. They don't really do anything else, right? So it's like it feels like it's a cesspool, or like it's a breeding like not breeding stock, but like it's just ripe for these sort of escalations to go further and further, because there's no actual like there's actual feedback or like something productive that you could do. And like, also this being set in 2003, I don't know if you thought that setting was relevant, or because I felt it was very modern. It didn't feel like, you know, maybe they would have thrown around a few more like actual slurs that you wouldn't say just for shock value back then. I feel like the kids nowadays probably somewhat still do that. Maybe some of them, especially in that age when they write about like testing out the limits of what they can get away with, right? They're cringiest for when sure. They do want to break out. I remembered like, you know, doing the same, and not with slurs, but like, you know, that's the point where you're like the most up against the world, and you feel like on top of it as you are figuring it out, and you're figuring out how to manipulate the systems in a way that you feel like you figured out something. But it's actually like that's why like I felt a bit too adult, because it feels like meeting them at eye level a bit too much. Yeah, maybe that's just me.
Like, I messaged you during the movie. I was like, brother, this dialogue is horrific.
Yeah.
To the point that it actually feels like the truth. The way they talk, and it's like it feels so close. Because again, I teach tennis, so I'm around kids of this age the entire time. At a certain point, because this movie takes place in 2003, normally these kids should not have access to internet. So this is also pre-internet, and I feel like they are trying to correlate where could these kids possibly get their influences from. Oftentimes, these kids are blasting hip hop music to that actually like has a lot of the words that they say. So they also like these kids obviously get their influence somewhere. But instead of just doing the hey, it's the internet, they are getting it from Reddit. It's more like it's hip hop music. And I feel like they're trying to correlate those two things now. Like back in the day with hip hop music, now it's internet. Like they're unsupervised and they have a sort of rebellious nature to them. And at a certain point, they get confronted by Joel Edgerton, and it's like, "How old are you guys? How old are you guys?" And then they're like, "Oh, I'm 12, I'm 13." And
I mean, Kevin, haven't taught like kids like this as well. Like I don't have a teacher's degree, but I also went to school to do that. Just from experience, it's the worst type of response to tell them like, "Oh, why are you behaving like you're in kindergarten or something like that?" Because it's like, it's just there's no response other than them shutting down because you're just being loud and you scare them. Like there's nothing to go back to because you're not going to have like a sort of level-headed conversation at that moment because they're in that hive mind where if you can't say something, then you stick out in a positive way. You're the agitator, and you sort of have to twist that around so it's not even something that is worthwhile. And that is pretty tough because like if you come back down to their level and meet them on eye level and feel like they're somewhat not your equal because there is a little bit of a hierarchy that should be there in school, obviously. I don't know, then you can circumvent these, but especially in these sports, right? That's like where a lot of that sort of stuff happens, and it's I mean it doesn't go it's not without a reason that the locker room talk is something that we reference to this day, right?
I mean, the scene that I was talking about, at a certain point, Joel Edgerton tells them, like, wipe that smile off your face. Like, I've had that this week because I was I was explaining something, and, like, they're all constantly joking around. And like, guys, like, there has to be a level of respect here towards me that I can return it to you. And, like, that respect is not here at all between the adults and even between the groups of the kids that are here. And I think that's why this movie is so effective. Do we go into spoiler territory now?
Sure we can. Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about Eli and the plague at all yet. Just about the dynamics of, I guess, the setting, more than anything else.
And I feel like that's also a good thing to do because, like, the plague, you're wondering, like, oh, what is this plague? Well, there's this kid called Eli. By the way, I you did not respond to this. Eli looks so much like the lead from Sing Street.
Oh yeah,
did you see that picture?
I saw it, but
he
I
looks
was
so
like,
much like it.
I don't
he
know
looks
if
so
I see
much
that.
like it.
I don't know if I see that 100%. And I was like, sure. I'll give it to you. Sure, he looks like him.
Thank you. And so Eli has the plague. He has a lot of like scratches on it and like rashes over everywhere. And it's like if you get touched by him, you have the plague. And the plague obviously also is a metaphor for just the bullying, infecting other kids with this mentality of like, hey, we are higher than them, with this hierarchy that you're talking about. And at a certain point, the main bully of the school does get expelled from the camp. And I thought there was a weird sort of, because at the end of the movie, you have to sort of have a message. And you got Eli, that is, despite the main bully being expelled, is still in this sort of submission, like, in this lower standing of the group. And then you got Ben saying like, oh, hey, you don't have to be like this anymore. And it's like, but then you got Ben also turning into a bully. And that's really the only flaw that I have with the movie, because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what did you tell with that type of twist?
Yeah, I think what Ben really wanted to accomplish is that getting Eli out of this state and not realizing that Eli might just be weird. and that's just him being weird, and that's his personality, and it's not going to fit into any group, even if you eliminate the one agitator, because you don't want him to be weird, right? You want him to fit in, so you want someone else to sort of fit into what you think is going to be good for them. I think it wants to shock you at the end with like the finger and the cutting and this sort of odd callback that because I couldn't really figure out Eli's character for a lot of this. I think Ben is really easy to follow. Jake is really easy to follow. The other bully, also like so well acted by the kid. He's such a little douchebag, but he's so believable. The way that he just when he goes like okay. Like the way he's just being dismissive, I like maybe it feels on a higher level of like maybe what you would encounter in real life, like a sort of guy who's this confident in like his shtick. It's also a movie that leaves out a lot of like ellipses, like a lot of in-betweens that would be relevant, because it feels like we are shown all of the places where they keep up the because sometimes it feels like the loosening up on how serious it is, like do not be touched in certain moments by Eli, like with the plague, and then they remember to go back into it like subconsciously even, or like something has happened and then they have to clean themselves really quickly just to sort of overshow the dedication to the group and buying into this sort of hive mind mentality in a way. I think there's like some stuff that is left out conveniently for the story to all come together. So it's like, to me, there's some stuff missing to give me a complete portrait, but for the sake of this movie and sort of feeling it goes for, I think it's very effective. I mean, like a couple years after this, I obviously would be quite a few years older than these guys were when they were in summer camp. But like I used to play hockey in like ice hockey in a room full of people, and it's also like similar to water polo. It's a very physical sport too. So like those kind of dynamics were these were incredibly familiar to me in the way of like these little in groups and the sort of games you play. Obviously you probably experienced that as well. I feel like it's just being a kid in the early 2000s. Something like felt quite accurate about that in the way that it was depicted here.
Absolutely.
And it's a horror show, man.
Honestly, the playground, other movies have depicted it, but the playground oftentimes is like a battlefield for these children. Absolutely. These kids, by the way, I a message to you. These kids are despicably great. And you said like, damn, that should belong on a poster. But I honestly, like, these kids should be in a Lord of the Flies adaptation. I know we're getting one soon, but like, if these kids aren't in it, what the fuck?
Yeah, because you said
so
you said that. I wrote my review as like this time around as Lord of the Water Striders. Yeah.
I'm not gonna give you a laugh for that. But at the same time, I also wrote like a one joke review. It was like Michael Jordan with like "fuck them kids."
Yeah.
But so you said like, hey, hockey is like a physical sport. And here we got water polo, which again, I think water polo is one of the most physical and like enduring sports out there.
Whole body is just staying up with your feet,
and then
has to
be floating, the moving, the blocking.
It's intense.
And with these lower, I mean, talking about these are younger. This is like a summer camp. When you watch the actual Olympics of water polo, it's one of the most supervised sports out there. Like the amount of cameras they got underwater checking everybody for any faults, any scratching or punching that's happening underneath water. Like you will see it at the Olympics. Like they won't do that because they know here you can get away with it. Like there's also a physical warfare happening in the pool between the kids.
Which I think they could have.
Effective.
Yeah, there's one scene really. I think they could have focused on that more, because like this whole illusion of the plague sort of breaks down, because I think Eli just would never get into water. Otherwise, like, is it not in the water the plague doesn't affect you, or because it like the sort of setting?
We never see him in the
break.
pool ever. I think so.
And then it's like the inconsistencies. Obviously, you could do that because they're kids, right? So they just like uphold this hierarchy or this exclusion of someone else when it's convenient, and probably wouldn't do it as much in front of like the teacher. Although you messaged me as well about like, it's probably got to be like the worst life advice you've heard in a while. And I thought actually it was so real. It was so I would do the same. Like
it is, but it doesn't help Ben in the situation.
I know, but nothing is going to help in that situation. So I'd rather be real than like tell him everything is going to be fine. Because I don't know, it's like he sort of. It's interesting because like you clearly can feel that Ben is coming from a place where he's a bit more protected. Maybe in a like I do get that feeling. I don't know where this takes place because he's from Boston, and I don't know where they are coming from. Like that initial scene where they make fun of him not being able to say the T is, oh my god. It's like it gives you so much secondhand anxiety that like. At one point, I think during this movie, I like actively moved to the side and went, ah! And then continued watching again because it was so uncomfortable for them to like, obviously as a kid, like desperately wanting to fit in, but then being made fun of, but then disregarding that completely, like all of the red flags of like, bad behavior just because you want to be part of the group.
And when Joel Edgerton says to Ben like, oh man, you just gotta be you. You gotta be you in that school, and it's like that really doesn't work at all. Like in this like playground, like you have to adapt your ways. Like you have to sort of. I mean, code switching is a bit the wrong word because it works more culturally, but like it's the same thing. You have to adapt. Like he wants to be with the group. We've talked about Jake, Ben, and Eli. The other kids are also, I mean, one kid in particular, we both know what we're talking about. The blonde guy with braces. My God, that guy has a punchable face.
I thought, before I rewatched it, I thought you were talking about Jake. And then I realized, oh no, you're talking about this kid. Because the one with the braces doesn't have that big of a role in the movie. It's more of the, what other role was he in?
He enforces that like group dynamic so well.
I mean, they all kind of do this. The only one who's sort of pushing back on it, not even really, is like Elliot Heffernan.
Who also played in Blitz, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, whose nickname is Tic Tac in this movie? Okay, I didn't know that. But yeah, he's the one who's like sort of, like they have the one conversation. I was like, yeah, obviously it's bad. And then after they, touch or like he hands him off something, he gives him his goggles, he still wipes his hand on his pants. So it's like yeah, no, I don't believe in it, but then I also believe in it because just to be safe, if it actually is true. And then it leans into that like there is actually something to be infected by, and it works as an allegory for him being hanging out with Eli, but it also does it muddy it in a way because they're somewhat justified that there is a sort of plague, like something to be spreading around? Or like, what did you think about like that choice?
Ooh, well, let me think about that. That's a tough one. That's a tough cookie to crack, actually.
It is tough because it's like, do you undercut your own point of like this being ridiculous, of like this them doing the bullying and like there actually being some merit to it, or is it just the underlying feeling that you have? Is that what carries through the movie? Because
we're also in spoiler territory. At one point, Ben gets the rashes, gets the hard skin, and he's crashing it, which actually makes it worse. It doesn't help at all. Even in the beginning, he just gets a pimple, and he's just so like desperate to pop it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, it's just kids. Let's kids just be kids. I mean, you also got the one scene where Eli gets a boner and then it gets called out for, and it's like, guys, it's one of the most normal things of all time, because you also have the girls in here, and the girls, what do? They do synchronized dancing, diving.
Yes,
I don't know the exact term.
Yeah, I think
but
so.
It's way more elegant out there. They're a bit more supportive of each other, where when a girl gets her period, then they try to jump with each other.
I feel like you could tell a story right here, right then and there, where that dynamic is also not there. Where you can flip
I'm
it.
aware.
So yeah, but I feel like generally, there is a bit more of a support because it's less. But I don't know. Like that's also like hard to call out on like a general level.
Yeah.
If that is actually the case.
There are mean girls, so it's.
Yeah, but just by dynamics of like exclusion, because like that's the thing that you easily can go to, because it gives you security if you can push yourself into a group by pushing somebody else out, right? That's one of the core like human things that we return to again and again, and we grow up to not do that anymore, to be more exclusionary. But like I mean, it always is there.
Did you think the movie did anything extreme? I mean, you got those cockroaches, like torture scene. I mean, it's essentially torture, let's be honest.
I couldn't remember what actually happened, but when Jake was skating through the halls, I was like thinking, oh wait, does Ben like make him break some bones or like fall downstairs or something like that? And then I realized, no, it's actually, I guess that's not what happened. I think the only place where it goes too far is with the finger, because I can't really see, other than shock value, why Eli goes that extra step of like cutting himself. And that's why like it felt too adult, because that was like almost like going into self-harm in a way, where you also have it like sort of come back from him making a joke about cutting his finger to like actually doing it. I also thought like him dancing with the Beepo, or like what that character is called.
Yeah, that Boppy or Boopy, the cardboard cutout.
We are way too young to know the name of that character, all right?
And I'm just trying to remember from the movie.
Yeah, exactly, me too. But that to me was so like performatively weird. That's so easy to like, oh, look at this weird guy dancing with the cardboard cutout.
It doesn't come out of nowhere, because he actually already has some self-harm. Like, for example, when he said like the fake blood. Oh yeah, but you can also save it, and then you got like the ugly shot of his hand. So it doesn't come out of nowhere, but it does have like a percentage of that shock value that you talked about. I do agree.
But I'm so also surprised how lacking the like parental thing is here, because they're not in the movie at all, right? When when Ben calls his mom, then Joel Edgerton shows up for that dinner advice scene. And when even when Jake gets picked up, it's his older brother. It's not his dad, right?
Oh, is it? I couldn't honestly tell from afar.
I mean, his brother is like 18, is what they say, and that looked like about an 18, 20-year-old guy.
And they also hint at a certain like class difference, because the brother, like Jake's brother, is like 18, and it's like, so yeah, but like Princeton and like one other school are basically fighting for him. And even like his excuse, like Jake's excuse for being the guy that he is like, oh yeah, normally like I do hang around my brother and his older friends, and like we just give each other shit like that.
Exactly. Give each other shit. It's him getting the shit, right? It's him lying about it, obviously. He's turning it around where he's seen that dynamic work not in his favor, so he's turning it around. I think that's really, really, that to me is like, to me, Jake was the most interesting character.
Same.
Not just because he's the most suave, he's the most confident, he's the most like the biggest asshole of them, but also because
he's the most troubled.
He's the most troubled. He's masking the most, and he's like on a surface level maybe thriving in this dynamic. But then, like, even when he says, for example, oh yeah, my dad was so pissed when he realized that like he paid for 2 sessions back to back, and I was like, he did that probably on purpose. You probably were here the whole summer, and you don't want to tell people that you're like back to back here because they wanted to send you off to summer camp. Like, that's the sort of vibe I had. I felt with him, like an underlying hurt, and he plays that so well. It's like it's well written, but it's also incredibly well done by K.O. Martin. And I'm curious what he does next, because like
Same.
Obviously they're all like very young, but like a dynamic, like Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies. I'm hungry.
I can tell.
Lord of the Flies. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that working for them, or just like any other coming of age sort of drama.
I mean, this is a great launch for young talent as well. This movie, you have your Room, you have your Stranger Things, of these kids that are in a project, and they're so good that some of them do deserve to be in other projects. It is maybe a bit interesting to see how they evolve as actors, because we haven't really mentioned him, but Charlie Pollinger. I mean, he has written this movie, he has directed this movie, he has done a stellar job, and I should say his next project is one that a certain Oscar winner has picked recently, Mikey Madison.
Yeah.
And we have heard about how picky Mikey Madison was with her follow-up projects after an Oscar win, because after your Oscar win, you have a certain amount of cred, shall I say, in the industry. For example, Ben Affleck famously won the Oscar with Argo, etc. And then you have some status to yourself, and then he went on to be Batman. So with the Oscars, you have a certain level of credibility, and she picked The Mask of the Red Dead, which is Charlie Pollinger's next movie, also starring Lea Seydoux. So I'm very curious to see what he will do with that project.
I mean, the logline: while a plague devastates the peasantry, a mad prince hosts a masquerade ball for the noble class in his castle. The plague again. He can't escape the plague.
Maybe he wants to do a plague trilogy.
Yeah.
Who knows? I will say, I unfortunately am a bit gutted by the fact that I did not see these in the theater, because the score, the sound design does go pretty hard. So I do feel a bit sad that I did not get to see it in the theater. Also, this movie was produced by Joel Edgerton, and Joel Edgerton is actually quite a talented producer and director, I should say. For example, with director, he has done The Gift, which I've adored, and as a producer, he has also done a few movies that I really liked, such as The Stranger. I have not seen that movie, but fully, but from what I've seen, and I've seen half of it, and I really like that movie as well. I should finish it one day. So, yeah, good things all around.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I didn't really like is that it ends on a dancing scene. That's a pet peeve of mine. It always gets you probably a half star removed from your rating. I just hate it. I hate that sort of expression towards the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It feels like a cheap, easy shot of feeling like your character has this pent up energy that they have to release, and then you cut to credits, and I always hate it. I don't know a single time where I liked it. So I gave it
it's especially because if you put the camera still, he looks like the biggest idiot.
Yeah.
But it's because the camera moves around, and it's oh, it's so beautiful.
And it's all right, we're gonna crash out right now. Cool. Let's crash out.
And I do get that he does the same dance as Eli, especially with the spinning around, because everyone is trying to avoid him, even the girls, to not get the plague.
Yeah.
So the fact that the plague has gotten this big word of mouth around the camp, it's also saying something. But yeah,
I mean,
I give this movie I don't know what I give this movie. I think I gave it an 8 out of 10. I do think it's a very, very solid project for Charlie Pollinger to throw himself into this film career. But yeah,
I mean, I would be at the same, but then the fucking dance scene takes it down a notch. Unfortunately,
7.5.
Yeah, somewhere like that. And also, one other note that I wrote down is my own familiarity of trying to help someone who's getting bullied in school, right around that age, maybe 1 or 2 years older, and that's just that person not actually wanting to help that I wanted to give in that moment is something that I found very familiar here with that guy in real life wasn't as awkward as Eli, but there was a unjust reason for bullying that I felt that was something real there, and it made me crash out like crazy when I was 13 or something like that. I switched to a different school because I could not work in that environment. It was really bad, and you can and I wasn't even getting bullied at all. It was someone else, and I that's why I think there's some disconnect that I had with certain like tiny little things in the movie, where I felt like it might be getting things maybe a little there's a little off, and is carried a lot by the score and the atmosphere it sets, and maybe not as much by the plot and like the dynamics between the characters. But it's still incredibly well made, and quite an impressive directorial debut for sure.
We also talked briefly about this movie in the horror section, like in our horror recap, because this movie is horrifying. Like a lot of the comments around this movie is like, thank fuck I never have to be young again. And this movie definitely gives you that feeling.
Yeah.
And also like in eternity, like you get into heaven, or like the train station thing at your happiest moment, and like there you oftentimes there you see, oh yeah, we do get like a lot of young teens here, and I'm like, are you? Are you? Are you sure? I'm not so sure after this movie,
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that wraps it up for our review. Hopefully you had a chance to check it out yourself. And like we said, we're looking forward to what Charlie is doing next, especially with Mikey Madison, Léa Seydoux, but also the young cast here, who hopefully, it could be like they do one role and then never again. It might not have been for them. I feel like that's
or
often,
like they go to Disney productions. You never know.
Yeah, so let's not place any pressure on these kids. If they want to act further and they have to sort of, they like it, then they do it. But I feel like often when there's like a breakout thing like this, there's so many eyes on like these kids, and then it's never good for them. Anyways,
but hey, you've watched some more Sundance movies. I haven't, so it is time to hear you ramble.
Well, I think I'm going to keep it as, like, we're going to continue from, I guess, what I talked about last week with Sundance, where, Josephine, something like Hot Water, Union County, those were the highlights of, like, my first watch session of Sundance. I watched another 8, and the movie that stood out to me the most was Big Girls Don't Cry, which is a movie from New Zealand. And I believe it's also a directorial debut from Paloma Schneidman. And it centers around a 14-year-old called Sid, who grows up in 2006 and has over a summer break. Her older sister, who's off to college, is also back and brings back a exchange student from the States, and she also is trying to fit in with a variety of groups around that around the her town that are a bit older than her. The movie opens with her in a chat room where she's talking to an adult pretending to be 18, and him going to jerk off, that sort of thing. It starts off pretty crass, and it keeps up that level of her trying to fit in at any sort of stage, but being a 14-year-old who desperately doesn't want to be a 14-year-old, who wants to be an adult. And I think this movie was so incredibly funny, so well made, so well put together, so well acted. I'm a bit higher than any of my other mutuals I see on Letterboxd, but I gave this movie a 9 out of 10. It really reminded me of Didi from, I believe, 2 years ago at Sundance, just like the female equivalent of that, of sort of a short, sabotaging yourself in a way, but feeling at the same time you're doing the thing that's going to evolve your social standing at the cost of maybe the friendships you held for a long time, or rebelling against your family, although they do have your best interests at heart. And it's also really sweet, the sort of friendships that maybe you not expect to happen. It's a very adult movie from that. There's a lot of drinking, a lot of actual pretty uncomfortable sexualization of this 14-year-old in a way that feels very realistic. So it might be off-putting to some people, where they say ooh, this is on the line here of what's acceptable. But I think it's incredibly strong. So definitely keep this one on your radar. It's going to be a tough one, I guess, for a release. I feel like a lot of Sundance stuff is, you might be looking for it a long time, and outside of Sundance, it's really the biggest platform it will probably ever have, but I hope it gets picked up somewhere. Then I also saw Extra Geography, which I've heard some pretty good things about. It's about these two English girls in boarding school to teenage best friends who grapple with the challenges of girlhood, friendship, boys, studies, and growing up, and embark on their school projects falling in love. So they basically make a project out of falling in love and say like, oh, this is what they're going to be working on, and they like randomly select someone to fall in love with. They select their geography teacher, who's also from New Zealand. There's a New Zealand tie over of my favorites here. That was random. I just realized that. Maybe it's the Kiwis that I really enjoy. And it's also like around that age, probably around 14, but way less sexual, I'd say. They do sort of, the way that they banter with each other is incredibly like fake and staged, but it makes sense for these characters. Like they have a great energy between the two of them. And it might be like something that is like someone's favorite thing, but it might be very off-putting for you. It's definitely like a vibe check that you have to do when a trailer for this comes out, and when you like maybe check it out the first couple of minutes of it. But I was on the same wavelength of it for most of it. Yeah, such a like odd look at these two girls who you know, grow apart in a way, but are like these best friends, and maybe showing how that works, even though they have like their set plans of like studies first, boys are stupid, and that sort of breaking down, but not really. Like I think it's such a cleverly written and very funny and entertaining movie. So Extra Geography, another one to put onto your radar. And then I think the rest of the films that I saw were like good to pretty bad. It often happens at Sundance that like a lot of these films are made for a very niche audience, and you know, they might enjoy it, but I just really didn't. There was this one film called Bedford Park, where a Korean American woman struggling with family expectations of her own aspirations, and an ex-wrestler haunted by his past cross paths when he's basically like crashing accidentally because he's being like pursued by someone into the American woman's like mother's car, and they go to his place. They have like a sort of fight, and then from there on out, like they keep running into each other. It's like two people who endure some sort of hardship in their life and maybe connecting, but like he's very much like an asshole for a large chunk of the movie, and then he softens up a bit. And I think this movie was like okay, but it was like a very familiar drama. Like it didn't surprise me in any sort of way. It didn't leave me with some big revelations or like something that I really enjoyed by the end of it. It's sort of a movie that unfortunately I like forget in a couple of weeks. But yeah, that's Bedford Park. Then The Huntress is a movie that's set like in Mexico and is about about an event that has been depicted in a bunch of movies before, about like the disappearance of a bus, and then it centers around Diana Paz, who's probably most known for Emilia Perez from last year, as she, in a vigilante way, sort of goes after the bus drivers who like end up kidnapping or like murdering and sexually assaulting people on their buses, and it's quite a harrowing like topic to center the movie around. Obviously, like that's at the very core of this film. I thought it was like decently made, but it was like meandering a lot along for the plot, like quite a while. Give this one a 5 out of 10. Then Carousel. This one came in with a bit of hype because it's Jenny Slate and Chris Pine, that like used to have something going on. Now he's like she's coming back into town, I believe, and he's like a doctor who's got a daughter who he's constantly worrying about, and as they like sort of connect back with each other, there's a lot of like history that they have that we never get to see, and this movie feels incredibly disconnected in sort of that relationship level. It never really worked for me. There's maybe some scenes that would work, but there was never the groundwork laid for it to like add up to that. So again, nothing more to say than that was pretty disappointing. Then Hold On To Me was a movie set on, I believe, Cyprus. And it was made by Greece or something like that. But it's like the stereotypical view the world through a young girl or a kid's eyes, as they have a troubled parents and a place to grow up, and a lot of it is them wandering the streets and being 11 but coming off as way older in the way that they approach the world. And it was just like very, very familiar with this sort of thing. If you haven't seen that many festival movies, you might connect with it, but I was a bit because it's like also the crime, like the dad is gone, he comes back, he has a lot of debt and people after him in a way, like I don't know, it's like just very expected. It's like low-key crime thriller set in some European country, and they all kind of feel the same, unfortunately. Then Night Nurse was a truly confusing movie. Like it starts out with sort of them tracing like a telephone cord around someone's body, and them like repeating the same lines of basically like, oh, grandpa like sent me money, like is some sort of exploitation of like elderly people, and making them believe they gotta send money someplace. And then it's a sort of scheme that's very sexual, but the movie never gets explicit. It's like a very weird tonal thing where like it's the power dynamic of like this old guy who pretends or maybe isn't, or is he like senile, and he's in this like sort of care facility where like there's these nurses that take care of him, but it very much feels like they're running a scheme. But this movie atmospherically like is so odd and never really came together for me like at all. I've really hated sitting through this, and I gave it like a 3 out of 10. And then the worst film I've seen in a long time.
Let's go. I was waiting for it.
Run Amok, which is based on a short film that also stars the two same leads in this. And it's probably like I wrote in my short little letterbox review that I've lit my podcast better than this movie was lit. And I legitimately tell you, this right now is better lit than the movie. And it's just a one light thing. It's nothing special.
What about me?
We'll change to your fucking other, I guess, like yellow screen or something like that, and then you got more like the movie. No, you're decently lit. But
I am lit.
You are lit. This is like sort of there's a 10-year memorial for like a shooting that happened in a school, and it's about this middle school kid, this girl who's like, I guess 14. She was like 3 or 4 when her dad, her mom was killed in the school. And then we slowly get to uncover a bit more of what happened. Not that that's really relevant, because it wants to give one character in this movie tells her that like she needs catharsis for this, right? Or like you want catharsis. So she interprets that in the whole movie as in a way like she's putting on a play to get catharsis for what happened with her, but she clearly doesn't understand it. And I think the movie never really knows what to do with the sort of discrepancy of her wanting to put on a play, her having this artistic outflow, and matching the tonal side of like it could be serious and this is comedic, and also is incredibly horribly written, again horribly staged, horribly performed. Everything in this is pretty dumb and dull and stupid. And then it wants to have the message about sort of Patrick Wilson. He's in this film, and he's the teacher who like stopped the shooting, who like killed the assaulter, and he's like seen as the hero in the school. It sort of wants to have a sort of commentary on we are just continuing to prepare ourselves in the wrong ways for these things, that we like arm our teachers in a way to respond to these things other than maybe look at the underlying issues. But it has nothing to say about that. It just wants to have like one punchy ending towards like it has like a pretty explosive sort of ending note, but it's just like it was so empty. It was one of the most painful films I've sat through ever. It's just all around really, really bad. And the lead character is like, a lot of it is like forced in these ways of like, let's put on a play and let's all buy into this thing of like, this is serious because we put on a play. But you never get the importance of like, why? And no one is ever questioning it. And in a lot of ways, it's like, okay, let her process it in the way that she needs to, but then she has a support system around her that never really chump checks her for what she's doing. And the lead character is also so inaccessible in a way where she's just malleable to whatever like the plot needs, and the plot doesn't do much. So like it's just like her doing and then going to the next scene and like doing that 5, 6, 7 times, and it's so annoying. So yeah.
Bro said 6, 7.
I know.
When is he ever gonna stop?
Exactly. But yeah, definitely stay far away from Run Amok. But yeah.
Run away from it.
Run away, which probably would be the best. Oh my god. They like the movie is then like the theater that they want to put on. It's just a reenactment of the shooting. And like it then wants to go into the sympathies for the killer of like, because I don't care about spoiling this movie. They say at one point that like because they go to the daughter, the mother of the killer, who's also played by like a prominent actor. What's her name? Who's played by Elizabeth Marvel, who I always confuse with someone else. But like, she's in this film. Also very underused. Molly Ringwald is in this film for some fucking reason. It's also very funny because like they have scenes around the dinner table, and they have that scene of like them saying their phones and roses to each other in the evening. It's so funny the way it feels like a like student film that they return to that set like I believe 4 times. It's always lit the exact same way, and it's shot the same way. But it's like you return to a thing as if it's like as if that is like a stage play itself, but it never has any punch to it. But they're like,
by the way, I know which actor you mean when you you always see Elizabeth Marvel as Allison Janney.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the one. Yeah, I do as well.
It says like the only person he liked at school was the mom of the person he killed. And then it's like, he loved her. Why did he kill her? What? And then that's legit the process the kid has about this. But why? He loved her.
The way you're saying it, man.
it legitimately is this bad. So yeah, my rant is over. I'm not sorry, actually. If you made this movie, stop making movies, man. Anyways. That's my Sundance coverage done. But
well, let's move
big girls
on.
don't cry. Big girls don't cry. Keep that on your radar.
But let's go on to our spotlight. So these are the movies that we have watched besides the main movie that we are reviewing today. I have not seen anything again this week. I am again locked in the edit of that montage. Literally, Ewan, I said to Ewan, like, Ewan, I don't want to stop. Like, I am so close to finishing Act 1. I gotta keep going, and you're like, I get it.
In a way, you didn't watch a movie in full, but you watched like 1 second clips of about 300 movies from 2025.
Nah, you don't know how accurate that is, though. I mean, because again, like I have only seen like 55% of the movies that I'm actually putting in the montage, so I have to scroll through these movies. Oftentimes, most of the times, actually, I do not have an intention to actually see. So I have to scroll through this movie. I have to go to scene. It's like, oh, here it is. And then it's like, oh, remembering time code to like insert it in the montage. Like, I've seen so many movies, but I haven't seen any. It's so true. Anyway, have you seen anything besides Sundance and the movies we're gonna talk about this week?
I mean, yeah, I watched more of Sidney Lumet's films. It was so funny that last week I was like, I know that his name is not pronounced Sidney Lumet, but I feel like it's such a French name that I don't want to say Lumet. I want to say Lumet.
I say it the same way, man. I don't blame you.
Yeah, but I watched 2 more of his films. You know, I've been on a binge since what's it called? Like The Devil, something.
Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Exactly. I watched Serpico, another really classic, you know, Al Pacino scene, and Network, one of his most well-regarded films that also garnered a lot of like praise from the Oscars. It won 3 of the 4 acting awards. I believe it didn't win. Did it win Best Picture? Can't remember. But it
Look
won a
for you,
bunch.
bro.
I start with Serpico because I think that's the stronger between the two, surprisingly. Both of these films were a tad bit underwhelming from the level I'm expected of Lumet. Serpico is about like a New York cop of the same name who blows the whistle on the rampant corruption in the force only to have his comrades turn against him. And, you know, in a way, it's very similar to, you know, a movie that we're going to talk about later in Elite Squad where like corruption is all around. But because it is an American movie, you do have, and it's based on like real life as well and like a real guy, you do have one person who centers around it. Like in real life, I feel like there was a bit more help as well, but it, like here it also pretty accurately, I guess, portrays this guy who just wants to be a good cop, and at what cost that comes when everything around you is like sort of corrupt. It's then like the typical Al Pacino crash out for like 2 hours, and he also looks incredibly, I confirm, he looks like very stylized, very hot in this. Like his outfits are crazy, and I think it's like talking about yet again, I'm surprised at like how pinpointed down Lumet is like at criticizing something and maybe a little bit of satire. Here it's played very straight, so there's not a lot of like, you know, comedy infused in it. It's just like the pent up rage that you feel simmering along. Incredibly well made movie, of course, and also, by the way, shot backwards because like at the end he has like a huge beard, and he goes back to like a clean cut by the end, so it's like an interesting tidbit that they like had to film backwards. So definitely one that you do have to watch that one as well.
Hey, I own it.
You do, but you also own all of Hitchcock, and well, by now you've seen one, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah. Network has won 4 Oscars. He has won Best Picture. Network's become the second film to win 3 awards for acting following A Streetcar Named Desire.
Yep.
Peter Finch won Posthumous. Then we also got Faye Dunaway winning Best Actress, and we also got Best Actress in a Supporting Role for Beatrice Straight.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you're not familiar with Network, the thing is, I also was like, I saw it on so many people's like letterbox like for favorites when they ask people. A lot of them mention Network. It's in the letterbox 250 as well. It's got a 4.3 rating on that platform, and it's just widely talked about. It's also got a really iconic poster and widely talked about it as like a great film. I didn't know how much of it was like this like satire, and what I've noticed is watching Lumet in 2026 is that a lot of his films are like frustratingly relevant to this day, and or even have become more so, where like it felt like it's very satirical at the time. Maybe it's also like probably also already in that as like making fun of something that is already a reality in like the 70s. It's about this guy who's like, his ratings drop. So jokingly, when you're like he's about to be in his last week at work, he goes out with a friend who works there as well, who's like the head of the news department, I believe. And they joke about like, oh yeah, he just like can kill himself on air. And then they joke about, oh, it would be the best ratings ever.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like at this moment to announce that I will be retiring from this program in 2 weeks' time because of poor ratings. Since this show was the only thing I had going for me in my life, I have decided to kill myself. I'm going to blow my brains out right on this program a week from today.
What the hell's going on?
And then it cuts to like the next show where he's like, this is actually my last show, and tune back in a week's time while I'll kill myself live on air. And then everyone's sort of late reacting to like, wait, what the fuck did you just say? Because they were like sleepwalking through the show. And then it becomes him sort of not holding like anything back in what he's criticizing about the world. And there's like a scene where he gets other people who like the millions of people who watch the show to say like,
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore.
I'm incredibly mad, and I won't take it anymore, or something like that, and that becomes like a chanting thing. I think this movie is a bit too broad in points for me, where like wants to lean into the comedy, and maybe I'm too frustrated with the world as it is right now that I'm not really seeing any point of pointing like fun at it. Although it is very like well observed, well made satire, But yeah, I only gave this a 7 out of 10. I feel like this might move up when I rewatch, but I just wasn't on its wavelength because it has like its characters are so over the top in the way that they are just focused on, you know, the clicks, the like the numbers, the viewers and all that, like the sort of retention. It goes very much into like one of the things is like the Faye Dunaway plays someone who comes in to pitch these new shows because she sees that like a rebellion group has filmed a bank robbery, and she becomes so fascinated by that she wants to have a weekly segment, the terrorist segment, where they show a clip that has been brand new filmed of someone doing like murder or something like that, and then they talk about it. So like it builds up the whole speculation of this cycle of like commercializing rage and outrage and fear, and shows sort of a origin place for like through people who like enabled that. Yeah, it's something that is ever present in our lives right now, and it's so infuriating in a way that they like want to infuriate you as well, which like the lack of control that you have as an individual being is like, oh my god. So yeah, honestly, like the commentary makes probably stronger than the film itself, but I Network is not a must watch that I feel like everyone should have seen at one point in their lives. But yeah,
I will at some point.
I know you haven't seen the second season of Fallout. I finished that. I think the show is more plot than it is characters. Someone recently said that, and I think it's just such a great way to describe sort of media in a very basic term. Is it like, you know, more sentimental value where, you know, there's not a lot of plot, but it's all characters? Or is it something like Fallout where like there's a revelation in the plot and the characters are just sort of along for it? And I feel like Fallout falls into that. It's very popcornish entertainment, but I didn't get much out of it, to be honest. And then 2 quick shout outs of what you can see. OBEX, one of my favorites from last year's Sundance Film Festival, becomes available on VOD. By the time you see this, you can go see it. Such a great vibe of a movie. I almost made Kevin watch it so we can talk about it, but it's a weird movie.
I mean,
it's
we
like,
can next week if you want to.
We could, but it's also like, I feel like the movie really stands on its own. It's going to connect with an audience that I guess we could give it a shout out. But something film trilogy actually that we reviewed every film for was the Oslo trilogy, not by Joachim Trier but by Dag Johan Hagerup, who made Sex, Love, Dreams. Yeah, we reviewed all of these. The first one we caught was Love Out of Venice, I believe 2 years ago. And really, really liked that. And then we also caught up with Sex and Dreams. And I think it also goes in that like order of our preferability. But now having them all like actually, you know, in sort of line with each other. Like we also were talking about, like, okay, what's the order of movies? Because it goes Sex, Love, Dreams, right? But I believe for us, we could only see Love, then Sex, then Dreams. I think it's fine to end with Dreams. But if you start with Sex or Love, it's like, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. They're not connected in any sort of way other than like being set in Oslo. But yeah, that's available on the Criterion channel. One subscription that, you know, if you want to cancel, another one. You know, if you got anything else, maybe Netflix is almost a must watch. But do they ever have like a movie that's like before the 80s? Rarely. Maybe 70s, like the one or the other if there's like a big actor in it. And that's sort of the whole like spot thing that, you know, world cinema of what we cover here on the podcast. A lot of those films from these filmmakers, if not the movie we talk about, but other films of theirs might be on the Criterion channel. So definitely. Something worth getting.
Talking about movies that like are before the 50s.
Let's talk about your introduction to Alfred Hitchcock. Oh no, I'm Kevin. I've seen his movies, but only partially through scenes. Well, we sat your white ass down and made you watch the entirety of Rome. Well, I could also say,
me, where is this sassiness coming from?
I just cannot believe that you haven't seen a Hitchcock movie at the ripe age of, what are you, like 25? And you haven't seen.
But I got 8,170 movies in my watch list.
But
at some point,
Hitchcock
you can go to that watch list and be like, you haven't seen it yet? Like, bro, please.
Of course, which we often do in a joking way towards each other. I'm just so surprised that a filmmaker like Hitchcock, who's made, I believe, like 50 movies, is someone that you haven't sat through an entire movie. But it's also to remember, he started like in the late 20s, I believe, right? And then he did movies up until like the 60s or 70s or something like that.
I was gonna say 70s.
Yeah, that might have been like the last few that he did. I think wasn't Family Plot his last one in like the middle 70s. And I did once when I got like this book, Hitchcock Truffaut, which is like written down this interview conversation, which I believe was also recorded, so you could just listen to it. And I was like in the middle of film school. I was like, let's go through his filmography chronologically. And recently I watched North by Northwest. I talked about that last week, and we discovered that you haven't seen a single film of his. So I thought, as someone who also studied film in university, who is like that, has that background, and also is someone who focused their thesis on long takes and these one-shot movies. Let's talk about a film that actually sort of did that. There's 10 shots in this film in Rope, but it's sort of the predecessor for that gimmick being explored even more outside of the obvious take of like a theater play, right? That is very like in dimensions, it's like very stagey. It's a very slick movie. It was one of my favorites of Hitchcock's actually, and coming out of it, I'm a bit lower on it because like I see where it places, especially with someone like James Stewart, who's like one of the great leads of Alfred Hitchcock's films. He was in Vertigo. He's amazing in my favorite film of Hitchcock's, in Rear Window. Yeah, I feel like Cary Grant might be, I guess, in more of Hitchcock's films. But regardless, I want to hear from you with your first full experience of Hitchcock. Is it just, he's very technical, he goes in for the close-ups for the big scenes and then he pulls back out, there's something in the middle of the room that builds the tension? Like, does it feel as didactical, like as sort of professory of like breaking the film art down into like, this is how you do this and this effect, or were you actually engrossed in the story? Because I feel like that's an interesting point to start with Hitchcock, because a lot of ways he's like, the reference point to like how you do certain things, but maybe not telling the greatest story or with the greatest characters, but he's so technical.
That's maybe the reason why I haven't seen any of his movies yet, because you hear so much about it that you cannot see it in any other way. That's maybe why I've avoided it. I mean, I've got so many great old directors to filmographies to get through. It's crazy. But Hitchcock. So, it is indeed let's say the first one-shot film, which technically isn't true because there are at least 3 hard cuts in this film. And so most of the time, they go to someone's back, it like zoom in until it's like fully black, and then you cut back out. That's how he does the switching of the film reels, and that's how you get this like sort of stitched together movie. And usually you always have the sort of suspense, and like either it's a MacGuffin or the suspense of something being that the audience doesn't know about, or the characters know about but the audience doesn't, and vice versa. That whole thing. And I was a bit surprised with, oh, hey, we strangled this guy, put him in the chest, and I was like, wait, wouldn't it be more suspenseful if we didn't know if there was a body in the chest or not? Because apparently in the play that is the case. I'm not totally sure. I actually haven't looked about it, but I looked at the behind the scenes very quickly. On the Blu-ray. By the way, can I just say the Blu-ray is fucking confusing as hell, because like it does say all the titles on it, but then as you open it, you just have the 2 characters on it, and if you do not know who is in what movie, it is so confusing. Like you have to look at the little text around the disc, see like which movie is this? Oh yeah, it's Rope. It's so confusing as fuck. Yeah, I thought it would be a bit more suspenseful with the body, but it's really more of a will James Stewart discover the body or not.
Mm.
And by the way, just quickly, I think James Stewart is in my top 3 actors of all time, along with Daniel Day-Lewis. And I'd low-key want to put Willem Dafoe in there. Like, that's my top 3 actors of all time. Anyway, and you can feel like things got lost in translation of this movie on multiple levels. In the play is originally English, so British, and you got way more, like, apparently, like, the homosexuality way more in the play. Also, the characters. All the characters are a bit more fleshed out, or like have their own unique characteristics in the play, and they don't get explored as much in the movie. Now, the movie is also only 80 minutes, so there's only so much time that you can do that. And so with film and with theater, there's a little bit more of a level playing field. But that said, I mean, the rest is solid as hell. I don't think Hitchcock has many misses. Does he? Does he not?
He has
What
a
would you say?
few early on, which I didn't really love, but like a lot of his stuff, like from the 30s on, oftentimes it's like technically it's always well made. It's just sometimes the characters fall flat, and I think it's like what the criticism here was with like James Stewart saying that like this is one of the roles that this is the one role he regrets, or the filmmaking with Hitchcock, because it doesn't see himself in the role. Like originally, the role was like for someone who's about their age, which was something really confusing to me as well. Because supposed to be all
he apparently wanted Cary Grant originally.
Yeah,
but he passed on it.
Well, there was also Montgomery Clift who was brought up here, which, you know, seeing him in some westerns and that sort of tension. There's like the one scene. Is it in Rio Bravo? Or is it the other one? Because I watched them back to back. I might be confusing them, but there's like one scene where he's comparing his revolver to another guy's revolver, and it's so homosexually like charged with that sort of energy, and I think he would work really well with that tension. Here the dynamic is just someone who's like a suave prick and the other one who's like anxious. It almost feels like a game of Clue, where everyone is like the different, because it's like the first color film that Hitchcock does here as well, where he talked about like he wanted the colors to not stand out too much, for things to not be as apparent, and then he noticed that it's actually like not that much different from black and white in the way that they shot this. I mean, they reshot like the last couple of takes again because he wasn't happy with like how the background looked and something like that. And it is very stagey, right? It's everyone has to hit their marks at the exact point. They talk about it in the interview here. Quite
especially
in detail.
with the kitchen door that like opens up and like closes down, and then you see like the
that tension of like opening up the like cleaning the chest. You mean that scene where like
no at a certain point like with direction he goes to put the rope back in the kitchen, and then you have like a door that like slams open and shut, and you got like the door opens and you see him putting the rope and then in the cupboard, and like it's a very technical shot that you really do have to nail during the one take.
I mean, the one scene where like James Stewart is like going out and then he has the wrong hat, and like the way that it lands on, like boom, and you see like you get all of the information in, like it is so, that's why I was so high on this movie. It is so incredibly technically precise without the dialogue really feeling, at least to me, it didn't feel like it was so clunky in a way of like, here's my like now I start talking and stuff like that. It was like it was well performed too, and I feel like to me who sticks out the most is James Stewart and the way that he enters the story, but he's also set up in the way that he's going to be disrupting the story. I feel like, you know, him entering this movie 27 minutes in makes more sense if there's more stuff to uncover, but it's literally just they have a body in the chest, and they're sort of being not very sly about it because they feel some sort of mental superiority over them. So it feels like the guy just almost in a way like Brendan almost wants to be caught in a way. And like we end there, obviously spoilers for Rope. We end there where like he's okay with it. He always wants to win him over And like that speech is like a classic James Stewart speech of like, don't twist my words and what I've said in a different sort of way to justify your actions. And I like that quite a bit. It was entertaining. It's quite. I think it's not like incredibly tense, but I did feel tension. And Brandon was such a fucking asshole, disrupting everything. And like, obviously, could have gotten away with it at least that night if he's so obvious in what he's doing and how he's manipulating people.
It is my first Hitchcock, so I don't really know where the bar is. That's the problem. So I'm gonna give this movie an 8 out of 10, and then if I'll ever rewatch it, I can bump it up, I can bump it down. I'll have a better reference point when I rewatch it, I hope.
Yeah.
So yeah, my first Hitchcock scratched off the list.
You know what would be a fun? I'm not gonna make you, watch another one in like 2 weeks' time or something like that. But I think another one that would be interesting is Lifeboat. Because it's set on like it's on this little they were filming in a water tank, and it's just a bunch of people. They're like stranded in a lifeboat together, and they were traveling on a destroyed. They were destroyed by a German U-boat, and they're just like on this little raft, and it's just those. It's just like make that cinematic. Try to do that. And Hitchcock's like, hold my lifeboat. I will do that. And yeah, he that's another one that's like I have almost on the same level as Rope, where maybe the characters are a bit more interesting, but it's been a few years since I've seen it, so can't confirm.
Actually don't own Lifeboat, apparently. Not in the box set.
Oh, that's crazy. I thought you had all of them.
Well, I thought I did too. Like, I literally have Hitchcock Volume 1, I have Hitchcock Volume 2, and then I have another box set that are like 3 of his films. Because like this one is like, it has the Universal logo playing in front of it. Yeah. And then it's like Warner Brothers.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, oh, wait, what? Which one is it? But yeah, let me quickly see how many of them I own.
He has 52 in total.
Wait, I only own 20? I thought I did way more. Wait, that's quite funny. So he has a movie called Sabotage, right?
Yeah.
I literally have David Ayer Sabotage. Like, the app has put that as his movie. But I definitely own way more than 20. Like, that can't be accurate at all. So, yeah.
Well, he has a movie called Saboteur, and he has a movie called Sabotage. Easily confused.
Maybe that's a trilogy. Oh my god. The long lost third entry in David Ayers.
And surprisingly, actually an appearance in the movie we are going to review next is, I believe, one of his films. I just noticed that at like Secret Agent. It doesn't that pop up on screen? And it does pop up on screen. I don't know if it's that movie, but I just realized that like that's a movie that he also made called Secret Agent, set during World War One. And they screened a movie called Secret Agent, and I was wondering, wait, what's this movie? And I couldn't figure it out. And now randomly I see it as we are about to review The Secret Agent.
Oh my god.
The connections, they don't end. But yeah, let us know, I guess, what Hitchcock movie Kevin should see next. I only have about 10 left or so that I haven't seen, but you can also, I guess, check what I've seen. And I have a ranked list of the stuff that I've seen with Rear Window at the top. I think that's still like it matches the plot with his technical side the best, I think. Cinema, absolute cinema. Anyways, let's
do a little Brazilian triple bill.
Over the Atlantic, welcome Brazilians. With the 4 Oscar nominations that The Secret Agent got after its premiere at Cannes, where won Best Director and Best Actor, Wagner Moura actually went all the way to an Oscar nomination as well. And this film, which takes place in 1977 as Brazil, sees the technology specialist Marcelo fleeing a mysterious past and returns to Recife in search for peace. Oh, I'm going to get corrected in the comments so much for that. I should do like 3 variations of that. But realize the city is far from the refuge he seeks. And when I first saw this film, first of all, welcome the Brazilians who like are very passionate about this film, winning all the awards it's going up for. I honestly like I feel like it's quite not infatuating, but it's like it's nice to see like them being so proud of something, especially like a story like this, which feels like it's depicting a time that is very troublesome, that is like quite dark, but embracing that in a reflection of the sort of real life as this process, as this whole movie is like a process of how you remember. And I felt that like I'm Still Here also did that, and it's such like an interesting thing that like in back-to-back years this time period gets depicted. And I just talked to we just released an interview with Hassan Hadi, who had also a film premiere in the director's fortnight in Cannes, The President's Cake, a film from Iraq that depicts a time period that he told me has never been like depicted in film. And I think this sort of process that also in a way of like the data keeping and how this movie is constructed with like the time in 1977 and then jumping to a more modern day where like they listen back to the tapes and stuff like that, the connection of remembering through art, the role that like cinema takes in that process, it's all like very poignant and well put together. And I didn't really like this movie that much on my first watch. I thought it was like it dragged, it was long, I didn't really see all the connective tissue. I gave this one a 6 out of 10, right? And I can already say my rating before we, talk about the movie further. But this was my biggest increase in rating, I believe, in a movie on a rewatch ever. Because I moved it up to like an 8.5, 9 out of 10. Was really, really blown away on a rewatch by this film, and saw a lot of like maybe a bit more of the historical context, because it's very interesting to see the response to a film and how it resonates and why it resonates with people, and then connecting that back to the characters. And obviously in the midst of like watching 6 movies a day, it might be lost on like a movie that feels very like heavy and like it demands a lot out of you. But having the time, like taking the time for it, I really, really resonated with The Secret Agent. But for you, now that it's on VOD, this was your first time around actually getting to check it out. So it's a long film, it's the longest in the Best Picture lineup. Do you think it should hold back anyone from checking out The Secret Agent, though?
So I actually took a little bit of notes during the movie, because I do think you noticed that, especially with my show notes now. Because, for example, in our show notes, like Ewan's text is always regular, like black and white, and then I enter my piece in blue. I think these are the longest show notes I've ever done.
There's a lot in there, yeah. I mean, I had a ton of notes that I didn't put into this because there's so much to talk about. I don't know if we'll get to anything. Also, I think before we start, definitely like if you, there's going to be people who comment probably or like want to engage with this, even if they haven't listened to like every little context and every conversation that we're giving. But I think with this, I'm actually inviting it, because I think it's very additive to like the sort of the excitement from Brazilians for this film. I'd much rather have them like, instead of telling us, oh, you don't understand something, is like, here's more context to things, or here's how I feel about this. Because ultimately, like, that's how stories like this, or like a culture like this, like, it is alive by like a continued conversation that we're all engaging in. I'm welcoming all of that. But yeah, what did you think?
We are broadening our general notion of history. Right?
Exactly.
I think we literally have done that for these 3 movies, should I say?
Yeah.
But this movie is divided into 3 parts. 4 if you count the prologue, which I actually think the opening is already a great reflection upon the themes of the film, which is the question of remembering repression rather than letting it be buried. And I feel like the corpse that is at the gas station, and again, no spoilers, it's literally the opening, at the gas station is sort of representation of that, especially the guys at the gas station being like, if I run away, I'm fired, I don't have a job, I don't have anything, but if I stay, I'm stuck with rotting meat. And I also think that's a very good phrasing for the 2 other movies we're going to talk about a bit later. Then we got the 3 parts. We got part 1, we got part 2, and we got part 3. All with a very apt title. First one, The Boy's Nightmares. The second one, Identification Institutes. And the third one being Blood Transfusion. All with very apt titles. Each sort of describing the setting we're in and the theme of them. Between those, we get the modern parts. Now, you said in your original watch at the Cannes Film Festival, you were a bit disturbed by the modern things. And I was actually in my first watch as well. And the reason why is because the connective tissue between these 3 parts and the modern setting is, in the modern setting, we are following 2 characters who are listening to tapes of this period we are seeing. And my illusion is a bit broken by them listening to those tapes, because at that point I am like, wait, where are we listening to the tapes, and what rooms or like gaps is the movie filling in? And it sort of tries to answer that in the end, but it doesn't really for me. And that's really my only flaw with the movie, besides 2 more specific things. One thing surrounding hairy leg and one thing surrounding a 2-faced cat. That's what I'll say about the movie in broad lines before actually diving into spoilers.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've read post seeing it in Cannes, I've just seen a lot of like people focus on how different it is, because like obviously the easy comparison is I'm Still Here, but that movie takes place more in the south, in Rio and like that area, and I think it is in Rio, right? And this one is up in the north, and there is sort of that dynamic of like, I've seen some people say this is not purely a Brazilian movie, but it's a Pernambuco movie, which is, I believe, the state. Probably butchered how you say that, but like that region. And I think it takes so much time to establish these relationships, and then the way that it pairs it with the violence that is so, by those who perpetrate it, by such disregard of like why even do it. And I think it can feel like it's not really adding too much in this film, and that's because like a lot of the victims go unnamed, they go forgotten. So that pairing of like the modern times where you questioning, are we looking at the story told through the perspective of modernity, or are we actually, telling the story of a guy and inventing it, or like, that's its whole separate thing, and then the other thing is just like how is it that going to be remembered of what we just saw, what's going to stay. And I think that's ultimately the focus of it, is like, what is going to stick from this time period? Are we going to remember all of these little things? And then doing that time period from like the mid 60s to like I believe like mid to late 80s, where that authoritarian military dictatorship was ruling over Brazil, you do have the on the macroscope, on the larger level of what like the dictatorship from top down is doing, but then also in these little towns of all of these corruptions that are enabled through the dictatorship on like a smaller level, right? And how sort of the main villain of this, which I don't think we'll get into spoilers, but the main villain of this is not a politician, it's not a dictator, it's a businessman, and the sort of corruption of money of this whole system, of how like he twists that to exploit the public good for a self-interest. Because a lot of it is like you're wondering, okay, he's a secret agent for what agency? What did he do? And as you peel off the layers, maybe I'm already going into spoilers if I would say that, but like, he's not really an agent, right? He's not really like, that's not what he does.
I mean, the comments on this movie oftentimes have been, oh, he's the worst secret agent of all time, because he regularly slips up, so that's why they say that.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like it's basically he works in like he's it's a sort of a science, like he's an inventor, I don't know, engineer or something like that. Like that's his focus. It's not that he's like part of like an agency, and he's just like standing by his values that go punished if you don't just like, you know, give up your power that you hold maybe to the guy who's got more money.
I mean, he's an academic. That's really what
Yeah.
he is. He's a professor. He's an academic, and like you said, the villain of this movie is a businessman. So I basically said that this movie doesn't really look to corruption from a governmental level, but more from a conglomerate level. Really, like it's another side of this dictatorship that also had an influence into the machine that was this authoritarian regime. But can we get into spoilers?
We can. I mean, it's also like the police not caring about like, does it come
Yeah.
from the military? Does it come from someone giving? Like, it's all just power that they hold. And I think, yeah, spoilers. With the scene with Udo Kier, for example,
Yep.
where they like they want him to be this like telling the story of him being like a Nazi soldier, but he's actually Jewish, and they don't care about the context. They just want like, it's this movie is so much about like the story that you want it to be, the one that's like the story that you want it to be, right? To make that true, what is actually not, and how reiterating that over and over again actually like erodes the truth, because all that is left is then like the myths of like a hairy leg, right? That is actually like one of your criticisms, but that's something that they take from like real life, that like actually like that hairy leg was a legend in the papers about like these murders, and especially like attacking like it does in that moment where it like goes crazy with like the hairy leg coming back to life and kicking people with like you know, the prostitutes out in the park, a lot of like gay couples, LGBTQ plus people, disabled people who were like targeted by and murdered, and then it's like made into a punchline that even our refugees who are like more on the side of like opposing this regime are like looking at the story and laughing about it. And I think that's really, really telling. It's such a great like storytelling. Like, and I noticed on a rewatch just how well put together the screenplay for this movie is. It's very impressive.
Well, but those moments worked for me way better in Bacurau than in here.
Right, yeah. That's fair.
And because
But, by the way,
Secret
for those who
Agent-
don't know, by the same director, by Clint
Yeah.
Mendoza.
in Bacurau they lean way more into that. That it's for me like I like that choice. But for me in here, you already got a 2-hour 40-minute movie. It more becomes for me a hammered statement. Like
Fair.
we've oftentimes said about these Brazilian movies before recording this, that sometimes they really do spell it out for you.
Yeah.
And with the hairy leg and the two-faced cat, I feel that's where they really hammer it out for you, spell it out for you. With the two-faced cat, which also lives at the refugee building. Oh, it's a two-faced cat. Hey, these people have
It's very on
two
the nose.
identities going on.
Yeah.
It's very on the nose, and I don't know if I needed that. I mean, maybe the hairy leg on its own I could live with, but then you also get a two-faced cat. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like that should belongs in together, the horror movie together, not in here.
Yeah, but I think for some people that's like the strength of actually pointing something out that's obvious, because I get that criticism fully, but I think it comes from a place where like a lot of these things are always talked around and never fully addressed, and here it's like spelled out to you like this is what it is. And I think it's like almost an overcorrection, a clarification, and a statement with that.
But then you have that scene when Armando/Marcelo comes back to the refugee house and they are talking about their names and their identities and where they might be going or why they are there for. Then that renders the two-faced cat useless for me, because that's already quite a impactful moment for me, and it didn't need to proceed by a two-faced cat. Also, a shark is quite obviously also a prominent figure in this. You got the shark that, hey, everyone can be a shark, whether it's from the upper class or the lower class. The upper class being the villain, the conglomerate guy, the business guy, and then you have the lower class. You have the guy who takes on the job for only 4,000. I don't know what the currency was anymore, but the other two guys, they take it for 60,000 plus
Pesos?
all of their expenses. Yeah. And then you got the Jaws movie where the boys' nightmare is like, oh, well, once the people have seen or recognize corruption, they're less scared of it. Maybe not less scared of it, but they have been confronted with it, and it doesn't become as big of a nightmare. It becomes more a reality.
That to me doesn't really make sense, because I in their shoes I would still be afraid of it. It's so fucking terrifying, right?
Yeah.
But then I watched something like Elite Squad, and obviously that's still a movie, but the way everything is like police and crime going hand in hand, everyone's guns around, that's the day-to-day reality. I'm like, yeah, no, that's the only way of living with this corruption. If you are just like normalizing it, obviously it's fucking not normal. But that's the only way to live with it. And I think that like a lot of these things like clicked a lot with me, where it was like, yeah, no, it was obvious, but maybe I just didn't feel it was like as urgent or as like resonating with me on the first time. But I worked way better on a second watch.
By the way, so. Hey, this is to prove we've done a bit of research, right? At some point when Marcelo Germando is with Elsa, and they are going back to the points that he's gotten to the point where he is. At some point, Elsa says about the white business donny, like he should be in Carandiru. I quickly looked that up because I felt like that was a bit of a name drop. You know, like, he should be in, like that's the same as saying, like, oh, he should be in Alcatraz, he should be in Guantanamo Bay. I felt like it had that same weight of it. So I quickly just looked it up. Apparently, Carandiru Penitentiary was a notorious massive prison in Sao Paulo, Brazil, infamous for the 1992 massacre, where military police killed 111 inmates during a riot. Opened in 1920 and demolished in 2002, it was the largest prison in Latin America. The event highlighted severe structural flaws and human rights abuses within the Brazilian prison system. Again, with these movies, we it's a prominent theme, and it is also a movie in 2003. A movie about it was made called Carandiru, which I guess we'll maybe cover at some point. It has a really high rating on Letterboxd, but again, I said it at the end of the show notes, but I just quickly mentioned it now. Sometimes with these movies, whether it's from Brazil or like Africa, you know, like or like even in Asia with any other movie, where it is a bit skewed by their national audience and not by the international audiences. So
I think it's the excitement is by the representation and by the relevance of it all. I think it's also often these movies that do break out of the country a bit more, that are obviously like incredibly popular. Like I think the director like kept posting on Instagram again and again like how high The Secret Agent was in the charts, and like it stayed there in the top 5 or top 3 for a long time. So similar to like something like the second Elite Squad, there's like sort of presence for something like the story that a lot of people in Brazil are also seeking out.
And Carandiru also gets mentioned in Elite Squad 2 Enemy Within. That's quickly what I wanted to say. Also, the other modern scene dialogue I really liked at a certain point, it was like the girl asks her, it's like, oh, don't you want to investigate this a bit more, like uncover a bit more? And it's like, oh yeah, I tried, but it is also pre-Google. And I just thought the term pre-Google is like an odd term. And
that as like, you know, seeking the absolute truth there because you can find it. And that's not a given. It's sort of expectation that you place in the way that like information is given to you and you see that as truth. And her going to the actual like primary sources, right, of someone like a recording, like a cassette, is adding so much more validity to like actual life and actual history that is so hard to remember. I think this movie is like, because I think it's not really that resilient. The story is not like about persisting past through this time, or like it feels in a like, partly I think it wants to end on that note with like the blood bank and like the cinema being this place of sort of giving life and remembering and like. But I think it's very depressing if you look like, it's not sugarcoating it, is what I'm trying to say. Not that like the movie doesn't have like, because it holds so many topics. I think there's so much individually that you take away from this film, even more than something like I'm Still Here, which a lot of people were like excited to give non-Brazilians outside context of that historical period. I think here this is thematically way more about like how you remember the past.
The carnival also gets mentioned oftentimes, especially certain despite the like a death toll, 91 people died, but at a certain point you still see Wagner Moura's character go into the carnival, and so it's despite the carnival being tarnished by a death toll, people are still going out to it, are still partaking in that tradition despite the danger. And that's also definitely like you mentioned it, I think that's part of the resilient character of this movie.
Yeah.
At a certain point, there's also like they're going to the Identification Institute to pretend working there when a woman has to come in for a testimony. And at a certain point, one of the ladies at the other desk is typing, but there's no paper in there. And it's like, oh yeah, I have a commission position, which is obviously a political dig at the time that, hey, we're doing nothing. My last quick thing about it, because you said resilience, and there's one poster out there, you'll probably find it and put it on the screen, but it's like him with all of the supporting cast in there. And I do get it, like this resistant machine, like let's say like the undercover helping other people out that are refugee, like it was a community. And but still, sometimes I would forget about these people. Like this movie's 2 hours 40. Sometimes like, oh yeah, you were still here, right? But like some of the people, like that were refugees. Like for example, the guy that handed the beer. I'm like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about you. So like, there's like a lot of character in it, and perhaps that is also one of the reasons that this movie got the casting nomination, because of how well all these people are cast. But maybe it were too many characters for me.
Mm-hmm. I think that is totally one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy it that much on the first watch. It felt overwhelming, and it didn't feel like that at all on a rewatch. And I think it is because you already know the faces and the sort of characters that they play. It's interesting how differently it plays on a rewatch and how easier it is to follow. Makes me think about like certain films that maybe I didn't appreciate because they were too much for me at first time around, of how I would see them second time around. And I think one other thing that I found really interesting is like that like after the dictatorship ended in the 80s, there was like a general amnesty for like pardoning like both the rebels, which in 77 that time like fighting was not happening anymore. That was like early 70s where there was like more of a fight back. This was like sort of the quiet despair of it all having settled. No, well, it all having settled into like this subordination to the regime. There was no power to like for them to actually fight against. So it was both the rebels and like who like got amnesty, like were pardoned in a way against the state, but also the military crimes with that dictatorship. But mostly like the stuff that got amnesty was like the military stuff, not as much the actual stuff. Like the rebels were already like imprisoned and killed for the things that like they did. So. And then this is like the slow uncovering of that and how much of their crimes have been lost, like that never go we never know the true extent of like what sort of crimes were committed as well. And I saw that like in 2011 the president at the time Rousseff reinstalled the National Truth Commission in order to investigate this further. But no one could be like prosecuted anymore. And that's like led to a lot of anger. So it feels like a lot of these things in these stories and why Brazilians are so passionate about it outwardly, about these films, is because it's not this historical context that we've moved past, but it's some underlying thing that hasn't been resolved in like Brazilian in the Brazilian government, where this sort of corruption, this distrust in actually serving its people is something that is frustrating to them to this day.
It is also an emerging movement that is happening worldwide, and I think that's also why these movies are so telling and why the Brazilians are so vocal about it. I do prefer Secret Agent a bit more over I'm Still Here, because I'm Still Here is very much more of a character piece, and like again, I'm Still Here, our reviews, like one of the most viewed ones, one of the most commented ones for sure. For sure. And I feel with Here there's way more to chew on than with I'm Still Here. And I just quickly wanted to compare the endings of I'm Still Here, because with I'm Still Here, that ends with her getting those identification, like Fernando Torres' character is sort of getting validated for her dedication to the cause.
Yeah.
And here, when she's handing him over that USB stick with all of his recordings, and like basically, because like Marcelo and Armando, like he's trying to find that identification paper of his mother. Like he wants something to have, something to remember. And then you got his son, who actually is trying to distance away from it. So they both end on a identifications retrieval. And like, one is searching for it, like her whole life, and under it. And then you got Wagner Moura's son, played by Wagner Moura, who tried to distance himself from it. Quickly, because I forgot to mention it, I do not like the choice that Wagner Moura is playing his son. There are movies out there that I actually adore. The Room Next Door, I know not many people love it, but it's a movie that's dear to my heart. I do not like the choice of Tilda Swinton playing Tilda Swinton's daughter. And in this movie, I do not like Wagner Moura playing Wagner Moura's son. For me, it just distracts from the actual thing that they are trying to say. And I just do not like that choice in movies in general. I mean, come on, man. In Godfather, you got Robert De Niro playing Marlon Brando's son. Like, give me some young talent in Wagner Moura's role. You know what I mean?
It's playing him at the same age of him, so like
I know,
but still, it's not. I know what it's trying to go for. It didn't work for me either, and I think it's one of the reasons why I was so sour on it. So sour with like a 6 out of 10, which isn't a bad rating, but to Brazilians, it's probably blasphemous. But initially, and what I really liked about this ending is how he plays that. I think his performance is. So like it's really almost I'm gonna say perfect. It's not perfect, but it's very good. But it's just the juxtaposition of like him playing his son doesn't really work, but not wanting to remember that and not wanting to remember person was, well, to me, like it cut really deep. I think it like really hurt.
Yeah,
and it's like a moment to end that story on in the way that like. Also, the person affected directly by the story we centered around doesn't want to remember. A movie that we just spent 2.5 hours in, and in the last like couple of minutes, we are told by like his kid that he wants to not remember. That he feels like the memory of like waiting for him blissfully, like his grandfather told him, is something that he doesn't feel like was real. It was a constructed memory. So that the happy feelings have sort of gone away that he has for that person. And that was pretty tragic, man.
Yeah, I should also mention it's not so much that he doesn't want to remember, it's also that it's a fading memory. Like he says, true, like, I don't actually know much of it. And I feel like that's also where I'm Still Here and the Secret Agent are saying like, hey, we do have to remember. Like we have to be at least aware of it so we don't repeat it.
But that's why to me it's so bizarre. You have like her bringing recordings of like directly his dad talking, and he's so at odds with like if he actually wants that. It's like it's very much just like the whole movie to a point of like it's easier to forget.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much more painful to actually remember and move on and like. Or like use that as like a way to move forward. It's so much easier to construct a truth where you are forgetting, where that isn't present. It's easier, and it's really powerful stuff.
And some people want it, like Fernando Torres' character in I'm Still Here, and some people don't, like or more at the end of The Secret Agent. So again, I prefer Secret Agent over I'm Still Here. They probably would make a decent double bill, like double feature.
Yeah, I'm Still Here first because it takes place in the 70s, then ends later 71. On, obviously, and then they both end like later on, but you would start with I'm Still Here because it's like more of like the starting point of like people being taken. I think the regime, if I'm not mistaken, like takes over in 65, and then I'm Still Here of when he's taken is
64.
Sorry, it's 65.
Oh, 65. Okay.
And then but definitely give us.
I gave this movie an 8 out of 10.
Yeah,
I gave this movie an 8 out of 10. I think it's really solid. Maybe my faults with the movie would disappear on a rewatch, but I don't think I'm gonna watch this 2-hour 40-minute movie anytime soon.
That's fair.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it, but I do have flaws with it. I will say I am quite interested in this director because I did like Bacurau. I don't know, did you like Bacurau?
I thought it was alright. It might be another one where I like it more when I rewatch it, but I've heard people praise it so much that like I went in with maybe higher expectation. Also has a great poster, and by the way, we haven't said it yet, but rest in peace, Pseudo Kier. Great.
I was gonna say that.
It's like I've mentioned him before when I don't know what movie we talked about, but I've watched him when he was like in a German TV series as like the villain in my childhood, and it's just been iconic to me since then. Probably like the cringiest stuff to watch back to because it's like a kids TV show, but I hold him in dear memory. So.
Is this his last movie? I think it is. Yeah, he doesn't have anything else.
I don't know.
But this is his last movie role.
Might be. I don't know. But I gave this an 8.5, maybe even a 9 out of 10. I haven't reassessed yet where it places in my Best Picture ranking because I think the lineup is really solid.
But from one Wagner Moura to another Wagner Moura film.
Let's talk about Elite Squad and its sequel, The Enemy Within. Both,
you gotta say the original title.
I actually don't have it. What is it?
It's Tropa, right here.
Tropa de Elite. I also at one point I had a whole intro for this podcast at the beginning, like in Brazilian, in Portuguese, and then I'm like, I can't do it. I know I'm gonna fuck it up, but people are gonna make fun of it.
That's where you would use the AI mouth thing. When
the only reason why AI is actually justified to use it as like an extension to connect with people. Yeah. Anyways, these two films are easily misunderstood. Elite Squad, especially the first one, it premiered at the Berlinale in 2008. Funny thing was, in October in 2007, it sort of released already because a earlier cut of the film, when they were doing the subtitling for it, I guess they probably didn't change much from that cut if it was just out for subtitling. Was leaked, and approximately, I think, like 11.5 million people estimated to have seen it. Not in October, in August of 2007. It was months before the Berlinale premiere, and then it ended up screening at the festival in competition, and it ended up winning the main prize, which sparked a lot of controversy. Like it was seen as sort of a justification or glorification of the far-right police force, depicting them as sort of the enforcers against crime. And I think often goes to say that maybe some audience goers and critics who go to these film festivals, we've been criticized for literally another Brazilian film that, we lack general notion of world history, for not knowing more about like Brazilian, like the Brazilian military dictatorship from the mid 60s to like the mid 80s. But I think for them, a bit of media literacy of like, whose perspective we are taking here and how we are supposed to like judge that would have been in place for this, because I think the reasons are not really justified. I definitely see it when you watch Elite Squad, which centers around, yes, partly Wagner Moura's character, but it is way more about the two rookies that come in. So what you've told me, like in an earlier version of the script and when they were shooting, he was taking more of like a backstep in the story, and then he like took a larger presence in the film, and obviously is like even more of a focus in the sequel. I think it's maybe because people connect so much with Wagner Moura that like they see him as a hero so easily maybe here that they would sympathize with what he's doing. But I think that like that wasn't like for the first hour you might be like, okay, where's this actually ultimately going? And I think it really like sticks the landing and makes a whole like makes its point quite well. If there's like a clear point to be made, I think I got it. But yeah, you really have been speaking highly of this film. I think you brought it up a couple of times in the last couple of years. I finally caught up with it now that we are pairing it with The Secret Agent. So yeah, what do you think on this rewatch? Because you rewatched both films as well, right?
I rewatched both films. The second one literally before recording. I woke up earlier for it. We both lost sleep for this podcast. We are dedicated. But yeah, I was actually at first, these movies are both on par. I feel like you have the same feeling with that. I think both movies are very much connected, but also are very different in terms of presentation. The 2007 movie, or like 2008, I guess. But in anywho, it's way more part of the chaos cinema. Again, you have to know in action cinema, because this movie sort of is an action picture. Like the director, Jose Padilla, was like asked about whether the Elite Squad films are actually glorifying the corruption and torture. His response was that his representation was truthful, and if creating a compelling action picture got that truth out to a wider audience, it's all worth it. So even he has said, at least I think the first movie is like an action picture. So in the 2000s, you had the chaos cinema, which was popularized by the Bourne films. The shaky cam, those quick cuts. You are not sure of the scene itself, but there's very much a lot of direction going on, of like right to left to up and down. Like it was very much a handheld shaky cam era, and this movie is very much a part of that. And the Elite Squad films, especially the first one, there's so much palpable anger in the first Elite Squad that I think combines very well with its presentation to like, it's just so much fuel, I feel like, in the first Elite Squad, to the point that I wouldn't necessarily change anything to it. And I think it's a great director's instinct that he noticed, oh my god, Wagner Moura, this kid's presence, I mean, because I don't know how old Wagner Moura was at that time, but like this man's presence is something else on the screen. And I think it's a great director's instinct to notice my two main performances aren't that compelling compared to Moura's. Andre is a bit more compelling than the other, so Andre does take a bit more of a presence in the movie than the other rookie does.
It feels like he's initially the lead of this movie, right?
Yeah, and a lot of the scenes with Andre I adore as well. You got that scene when he's in that classroom, they're doing their presentation of the cops, and he's, like you said, he's sort of getting shumshacked by these kids that are also part of the problem. And again, the meat of these movies.
Like the part of the problem, I feel like the part of the problem is the discrepancy in the social standing. And also, then it also directly goes into them dealing drugs as well and being part of that. Like, but that's just because feels like everyone is in this. Like, you feel like every character you meet, even if they're like on the outskirts of it, are affected by whatever's happening. So you can't really escape the grasp of the crime, but also not the police.
In the beginning of the movie, Wagner Moura's character says, like, at a certain point we had 30,000 men and we actually could have finished it, but we just lacked the training and the funding. Like, it was possible, like his character says. And from that point on, you do feel like the police chiefs are holding back the force intentionally for their own benefit. For example, with the car part, one of the rookies has to handle the garage, and they are like, yeah, we are struggling. We are not getting the parts that we are deserve to fix the cars. And whenever we have to fix a car, it's always the chiefs or like one of the higher ups that gets priority, hence always holding back the force potential. And if they do cross the line, they just get transferred. I mean, the same with the academics in the secret agent. They always got put out somewhere else. The same here. You get either put in the kitchen or you get put wherever else it is if you cross that line. But yeah, I feel like I've said enough because I really adore the Elite Squad films. I think they're a really strong piece of cinema. But you hadn't seen them yet, so I'm very curious on your reaction.
I mean, to me, I was going into it with that reaction that it got from a notable amount of people that I'm also thinking, like, if you critique a sort of institution and violence in that way by depicting it, there's inherently always something about it that is, like, that is thrilling in the framing of, like, an action movie like this. So is it, like, a contradiction to that? Like, how can you do that purely? And I think you can't. So in order to just do it as accurately and as nuanced as you can on a character level is probably the most justice that you can do it. Because it's like you go down this road of telling a story like this, then you really can't sugarcoat stuff just for the sake of like lacking controversy or like brazing over stuff. So when we focus on how much they just go in and shoot first, each time I'm thinking, what the fuck are you doing? And then you're sort of looking for, at least for the beginning, you're sort of looking for the justification of how much violence is on the counter end to justify their violence. That's your first step of like, immediately I feel like that's what we tend to do. And then when that isn't really happening, or maybe you see it, yes, it happens. Often it is a response out of fear as well. It's like the police is just as much a part of like this process of all of this crime as the crime itself is, as much as like the poverty is like enabling all of that. And it like, I think it very neatly in the second one is like, all right, this was just a brass tacks of like what's wrong with it on a smaller level. Let's show you what's happening, what's wrong on the higher level, and can you actually change anything about that? I feel like the second movie is taking a sort of approach where it's like almost a tiny bit sugarcoating it by the end of like how maybe you get out of this rut. And I think I would have liked it to stay a bit more real of what is actually accomplished. I don't know how much it taps into like, because it's the second one starts off with like, no matter like it might be, there's a coincidence if like it resembles something in real life.
This film is fictional.
It's fictional, right? And no matter how close it is, it actually like it is just coincidental. Yeah, I think the first one felt a bit more grounded, and not that that's a critique if the second one then goes higher up, but it felt like that first one was a critique on the shoulders of these police and military, like the Boppe guys, and seeing like how that wheel starts turning with like a large, like we talked about this. It's crazy to have like a recruiting scene, a recruiting montage in the back end of your movie. Because it feels like it's laying the groundwork maybe for a next film or a next story. And it's an interesting choice that I
told you, I literally asked you yesterday, it's like, Ewan, like, I can't recall any movies having a boot camp, like a training camp in the second half.
Yeah, not a training montage, but like a boot camp scene. Because like there's training montages in like sports movies all the time in the second half.
Of course. But I was like, is there an actual like boot camp in like a war movie, a crime movie? And it's like you said, like, I don't remember. And it's like, even I looked it up, and it's like, I don't really see any other movies that have this. And
because like the thing is, it's like it's not about building them up to meet that level of that, because like that would be a rise, right? Mm-hmm. This build up, making them malleable into these agents, is like a downfall for them on a character level.
And Wagner Moura's character wants to be out of Boppe. I mean, that's also
basically the whole movie. He wants to be out of it, right?
He wants to be out of it. And you also have the coming of the Pope, which rises the tensions of that, hey, we have to clean this up. And it's also with this movie, I feel like with Elite Squad, I can easily I'm not sure, but I can easily imagine that very much with Hong Kong and like Japan and like all of that with the triads and crime on the rise, where people are trying to look after a period and it's been bad. They are trying to look for other ways to make a living, that they go to these crime gangs, like, hey, drug dealers on the rise, and then you have to act differently. For example, one of the scenes in the first one that I adore is that Wagner Moura's character goes to in his in their apartment, and he goes to his wife and he's like, "Don't you ever render any judgment of my team again."
Yeah.
And it's not a scene only done out of anger, and it's also like a scene that's done out of, please don't cross this line of me being this Bope agent and me wanting to become a father, wanting to become an actual good individual. And it is so strong. That's why actually on the rewatch I prefer this first one just a tiny bit more.
I think because the second one is way more the process of him trying to, like, I wrote down multiple times in my notes, is he even redeemable? Is there, like, no matter what he does, can he can't outdo sort of the bad that he's done as a sort of figure of this institution. And then the only way that it like ends with the story is like the way that, yes, he could redeem if it takes it all down. And I think it would be more interesting for him if he doesn't get to do that. Not that it needs to be nihilistic and, he needs to die, but he's like, he's like the way that it like says it opens with him getting shut up. And I was like, this is how, it would play out in an American movie. And it does sort of play out in a very American way towards the end. I feel like the way that it resolves it on a public stage of like outing people and stuff like that. And I thought that like slight hypocrisy that is pointed out in the story to be quite interesting. And also going way deeper on his himself, his character and how he's processing it. And I also was quite surprised, like when, obviously like talking spoilers here, right, for the movies, when Andre is like, I thought he was going to be in the whole movie, and then he just quickly isn't. And I'm like, holy fuck. Okay. That makes sense in that moment, but it happened so abruptly, and it like reminded me how quickly also in The Secret Agent some deaths feel, or like how abrupt and how out of nowhere they are, sometimes even happening off screen. And in this film as well, like in the first one, it opens with Matthias and Neto is his name, right? Shooting, and I'm like, oh, this is part of the crime people. And then I realized later on when we're back to that moment, oh no, they're part of like the same, like this is a confrontation that is infighting, that like what to me wasn't 100% clear all the time is like who's police and who's part of the Bope. And I think it's pretty easy to understand once you like get a slight grasp on it. But like in the first couple of times where they confront each other, I'm like wondering, okay, who are you with?
We also always talk about like a scene that sort of encapsulates the movie. In the first one, there's like a tiny like 30-second scene where Wagner Moura's character is like with a team, and one of them is a sniper, and they are looking at a corrupt cop dealing with a drug dealer. And at a certain moment, they say like, never mind, we'll pick him up later. And then all of a sudden, the sniper says like, if I shoot now, I can hit both. And he's like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Like, damn. I feel like that encapsulates that movie so good. And with the second one, the few notes that I have there is that at a certain point, with the invasion of Tanque, I believe the region is that they're, like he says, you know what this operation should be called? It should be called Operation Iraq.
Yeah.
Very, again, those dicks.
But it's also what we didn't say is like the first one is set like 10 years earlier, right? It's set in 1997.
Yeah, in 1997.
And the next one takes place 14 years later, so it is taking place in like 2010, 2011.
Modern time,
when this movie was,
but it was also like 4 years earlier.
Yeah, and then it goes back a couple of years, but it like, I don't know why it, I guess, I didn't really get a sense of like the time
it does that to show Wagner Moura's evolution inside the bureau itself.
Yeah. But a lot of it doesn't feel like he's making a lot of big jumps once he's there, to be honest. Like, it feels like he arrives.
That's also what they're hinting at.
Yeah, exactly. He's like stagnant and sort of rendered.
Like his power in the field has been rendered useless. I mean, you've got that one scene where he's in the helicopter and he's actually leading the things, but then he realizes, oh, I've participated in the machine of cleaning this neighborhood up. The police and the main cop can actually come in and abuse it.
There's also one scene that I found to be really good when after Matthias gets suspended and he goes to talk to him when he feels like there's a betrayal. He talks to the press, and then he comes to say like, oh, you fucked over the governor. He hates you now. You're on a shit list, right? One of the reasons why he isn't taken in, but I feel like Matthias is still holding to that standards of fucking up corruption, but also like the way that it ends on the first one, very much motivated by his own self-interest and like the path of revenge that is just like fueled by rage, which, you know, seeking that self-righteousness whilst murdering yourself is like, you're never going to accomplish something truly like you're just adding to the machine. And the way that he says to him like, you're not going to change anything from within the political system, it's only going to change you. And I'm like, that's what he's trying to fight against, that like also, yes, changing him because he was a product of that regime itself, so in turn changing him is also partly changing the system. And Matthias not being able to understand that or like see that, I found to be like a really well put together scene that resonated with me quite a bit.
The last quick thing that I have is also that I found quite noticeable is in the first one, when there was a funeral, you got the casket that is wrapped up in the Brazilian flag, and then you have Wagner Moore's character coming in and he puts the Bope flag over it. And in the second one, it is reversed. You got the casket wrapped up in the Bope flag, and then you got the Brazilian flag that is put over it, sort of as to put away this like, oh, this man was a Brazilian, you know, like more the nationality rather than the family part of the Bope. So that I found also quite a very good directorial decision.
Yeah, no, I didn't even notice that, but that's true. Yeah. I mean, I also like the new characters that like take a forefront in the second one. That are like,
you got some recurring ones like Fabio, etc. Andre, one more.
Yeah, exactly. And then the guy who what's his name, who was like taking over as like the big corrupt cop. Essentially, what's his fucking name? He's such a disgusting piece of shit. It's crazy.
Well, the bigger piece of shit for me was the guy that
who couldn't walk two steps without being out of breath. It was crazy. I was crashing out this fat piece of shit. Sorry, no, for it, like in the context of the story, he was so despicable. I hated that guy so much.
But it's also like, again, the being part of the propaganda machine on TV and then getting a role in the government. Oh,
yeah.
Hey,
I also like the invasion Iraq thing that you pointed out, like the clear like placement of a fake robbery to justify something else. Obviously, like that's what he's referencing with Iraq, but I think we haven't spelled that out yet. You call this movie also like it's quite brave in what it does. It's like so outwardly like showing you, no, this is the fucked up shit and it is happening.
Yeah, the shot that I sent you was two guys that are doing the cleanup essentially, which is something you never see in the movie, but like, hey, they're actually like trying to take the corpses out of the fire and like pulling their teeth out so they don't have any dental records of the bodies.
Because it is so easy on a story like this to like focus on the violence that is the first set of violence, the killing, but the cleanup and the ongoing, like to keep this thing going. You wonder, oh, once you get the ball rolling, it is like rolling and the system's in place. I was like, no, it's not. If you want to keep that and you don't have corruption that is going all the way to the top where like everything is disregarded, then you do have to do this like cleanup that is incredibly dirty and so violent, even post killing someone, that like, I think the emphasis on that was like a striking point, like the disconnect of like being so high on the power, like the amount of times it focused on the sort of oh, we got an election coming up, or like that sort of thing of like, that's the focus, that's how we go about it, and how blatant it is. And it reminded me, a lot of like some systems that are in place right now that are very current, that are happening right now, where they just like, we have information about people who are on the Epstein list, who have done some very wrong things. But will they ever be put to justice? Will they be held accountable? And it's exactly what it's confronting.
I don't know what you're talking about, but something with frozen water, yeah, something along those lines, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one last thing, show note I had is in the first one, when they go around in the slums and they want to find the dealer, and they shoot a lookout. And later in the first movie, they're like, fuck, like the mother came along, and it's like, all right, we're going back in, we need to find the body. And in the second one, that intention is nowhere to be seen, especially when spoilers, there are some prominent figures that die to trying to find this corruption. There is almost no intention to search for the body anymore, even though like they're more important individuals in the second movie than in the first. In the first, it's technically like a lookout, but in the second one, they are journalists essentially. Because I guess we said already spoilers, and there's no intention to find them, even from the editor themselves, which should be chasing this news, but it isn't doing that at all.
Yeah, it's also pointing out way more that it is like the mafia, the way more like in its organization, and like it's also. I wanted to bring this up. I think to me this feels way more like a Scorsese movie.
Which one? The second one?
The second one. Because it is very much taking that perspective of like showing the rise of these people, but then also going into the fall, which is something that Scorsese always does. And yeah, it definitely felt, maybe it's also the narration, which also was in the first one, but it feels the most like a Scorsese-ish type of crime movie. And like that wasn't something that I was looking for. I just felt that repeatedly in the film, the way that it also explains sort of cutting out the middleman for the cop at the first time, and then the sort of the Roca is his name, the way that he sort of takes a step up. I think the most one of the most tense moments was when he's like out with the three politicians, or like the two politicians and the TV guy, and they're like at a cookout or something like that, and he is holding his gun the whole time, and no one is reacting to it apart from like, oh, he shot, so like, oh, loud noise.
Yeah.
But then he's like waving it around like as if it's the most normal thing, and I'm like, brother, I'm crashing out at just the thought of like him just accidentally shooting someone, and then that probably not even mattering, because like it's baffling. So yeah. I also like the Varga character quite a bit. Like the way that he was like trying to push against it. It's obviously like a counter hero to all of this.
Yeah.
Did you like that? It's like it's a bit messier because Vargas with his ex-wife, right, and his kid.
Well, it's at first you're like, oh, of course, but it actually makes sense because like she's already struggling with the man that she is in the first movie. It wasn't gonna be long before she left and like tried to find a correct person. And the last thing that I wanted to comment on was also the voiceover, because the voiceover in the first one, I think, is actually a necessity because you have to have some glue between the scenes. And if in the first movie it was in your script that the rookies are the main character, but your supporting character isn't as big as it is in the movie, then you have to fix that through narration. So I think in the first movie, the narration was actually a necessity to have the structure of the first movie that he wanted to. And in the second one, it gets capitalized upon that to actually explain the inner workings of it, which I think is a successful thing. And that's also, I think, he's actually a pretty great director, which, is he in director's sale? It's just like he has done the
Narcos,
Elite Squad movies.
Yeah, he was producing.
And then he's got like, he's done RoboCop, which obviously was a flop. And then it's like, okay, you've done 7 Days in Entebbe in 2018, and nothing. And it just makes me wonder, because apparently from what I've read, like he really wants to expose police corruption. And it's like, was this is the only movie you had in your like bones that you wanted to get out? Because it's like I'm quite sad that he hasn't made another great movie besides these two, and we're like almost 20 years later from the first one.
Wagner has recently talked about that, like early on when they did Narcos and he was involved, that like Netflix was way more hands off in all of their projects. And I don't know how much he can do what he wants to, if that's like hard to get funding or what's the status of his like latest projects are.
This makes sense. The director was actually involved as an executive producer and producer with Narcos. So that actually makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he also directed, I believe, like a few episodes of the show. And that's why he's also like, I think Wagner just recently talked about him on like a podcast that I listened to. Unhappy, Sad, Confused. And he was also, like, to me, it was also interesting that with the Oscar nomination for Wagner, he was asked, like, what he's doing next. And he said, like, he's making a smaller film with, like, an Argentinian director next. Then he's gonna do a play. And then he's doing his second feature film that he's directing, which is also going to be indie. So he said, like, this Oscar nomination changed nothing about his plans in 2026, which I find quite interesting. Because I feel like he's a long shot of actually winning, and not that would change much in the options that he has. I feel like he already has like has had like a bunch of options, and I think getting recognized for like an indie film like this is not really changing your trajectory that much. So I'm happy to see that he's like, you know, continuing on with projects that he seemingly is enjoying and getting something out of it.
Also, quickly, I would say Wagner Moura is better in the Elite Squad film than in The Secret Agent. That's maybe like a hot take. I don't know. But
I like him. I like him in the second Elite Squad quite a bit. I think I don't know. It's hard to compare the two, but I might prefer The Secret Agent. But definitely let us know which one you prefer. And also, we would love to have more recommendations for Brazilian films that can be all over the place, stuff that we definitely have to check out, and we'll make sure to at some point get to it, because every week in this Spotlight World Cinema section we're talking about different films that aren't American or English films. I think for both of these films I gave it like an 8 out of 10 rating. I do prefer the second one, I think, slightly more. Maybe it is because there's a bit more of a hopeful ending to it, although that like slightly takes it down for me even, because it feels like it's wrapping up the story quite neatly in the second one, a bit more than like the messiness of the first one, which really effectively ends like with a like tilt up to like the white sky.
To Andre, yeah.
It's quite haunting. But yeah, I think you're on the same wavelength here with me, right? With an 8 out of 10 here.
I actually bumped my rating up just a bit on the first Elite Squad because of that messiness, because of that anger and that energy that I'm lacking just a tiny bit of in the second one. I do prefer the first Elite Squad a bit over the second one, but I still think they're both so much on par. They are so well connected. The ones, and like I told you, like the first one is like gritty, and like the second one really works more on a bureaucratic level, on like a higher up level, and that's why I think they balance each other out so perfectly. So yeah, I gave the first one a 9 out of 10, and the second one I gave an 8 out of 10. But they are both brilliant films, and you should definitely check them out if you haven't already.
But that wraps it up for our episode today. Next week, for the first review, Kevin won't be joining us because we are talking about Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights with Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi getting entangled with each other. I've heard all sorts of things about it.
You're gonna fart at your mouth when you see him.
Fuck yeah. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. But also, we'll be reviewing later on with Kevin in our World Cinema section, actually also Wuthering Heights, but because it classifies as a World Cinema pick, even though it is based on Emily Bronte's novel. We are watching Wuthering Heights from 1988, which is a Japanese version of the story, right? That's one of the ones we didn't just like, because there's a ton of adaptations of it. I believe I got like 5 or 6 of them. There's the Andrea Arnold one that is like the one from 2011. There's like a mini series. There's a ton of adaptations.
You got the Tom Hardy one, you got the Ray Fiennes version, but there are too many. Are you gonna watch all of them in like 1 week, bro?
My goal is I'm also finishing up the book as we speak, and it's interesting. I mean, you can definitely like you can go into different directions of what you end up focusing on, I think, in the story, and I think Emerald Fennell is going to interpret it quite freely of what she's known for.
And hence the quotes in the title as well. Like the quotes are part of the title.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll also review a movie called Crime 101, and most likely, at least I will definitely get to it. I don't know if Kevin will see it as well in time. Goat, the latest animated film that's hitting theaters. So we'll have a packed week again with Lachlan returning. We'll see how much he has to say about Wuthering Heights. But if you want Kevin and I to talk about Wuthering Heights, you get that, like the double dose of Wuthering Heights. And also I'll watch a couple more and I'll talk about the book. So next week will be a steamy hot mess.
Another 2+ hour episode. Let's go.
Will definitely be that. But in the meantime, drop us your recommendations for Brazilian films to watch and for other world cinema picks, and just whatever you want to talk about. The comment box is free for you to explore. And join our Discord, leave a like, subscribe. Kevin, what else? Oh, no, Eli.
And cut.